Any members or officers in physical attendance with an electronic device should mute it to avoid feedback. Any remote participants, please keep your camera and microphone off unless you wish to speak, and ideally do not use the camera facility at all, as this can affect the quality of the meeting. The meeting may be recorded, and data collected during the recording of the meeting will be retained in accordance with the Council's data retention policy. The recording of the meeting may be added to the Council's website. Members accessing the meeting remotely should use their Swellborough Council or Kent County Council laptop to participate virtually. If you join using the link on the website on a mobile and tablet device, it is not always possible to identify you, and you may not be recorded as in remote attendance. I welcome officers and any members of the public to this Licensing Committee meeting, including any visiting members and members of the public. The following staff in attendance, either in person or remotely: Contentious Lawyer, Mid-Kent Legal Helen Ward, Community Services Manager Steph Curtis, Licensing Team Leader Chris Hills, Licensing Officer Joe Thomas, and Democratic Services Philippa Davis. Are members all aware of the emergency evacuation procedure? There is been told there is no planned evacuation, and if the alarm sounds, Democratic Service officers will direct all attendees safely out of the building and into the car park. The lifts must not be used at any time. Is there anybody in attendance with mobility issues? Please indicate now. Are there any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies have been received from Councillor Derek Carnell, who is substituted by Councillor Richard Palmer, from Councillor Simon Clark, and from Councillor Paul Stephen. Thank you.
Thank you. Do members take the following minutes as a correct record? As one other thing I should have said it basically, has anybody got a non-pecuniary interest? Or anybody got a pecuniary interest? Take that as no. Right. Minutes of the meeting held on February. Do members take the following minutes as correct? The minutes of the meeting held on 15th of February 2023, minute number 652657. You accept that as a... You take that as correct. Also, the 2nd of March, minutes numbers 752 to 756. Do members take that to be correct? Take that as yes. 27th of April, minutes numbers 830 to 834. Take that to be correct. 4th of July, minutes number 165 to 169. Take that to be correct. 6th of July 2023, reconvene minutes numbers 178 and 182. That to be correct. 31st of August 2023, 10 AM, minutes numbers 230 to 234. That to be correct. 31st of August 2023, 2 PM, minutes numbers 235 to 239. Take that to be correct. 10th of October 2023, 10 AM, minutes numbers. These minutes are not finalised. 10th of October 2023, 2 PM. This was on the agenda, but the meeting was cancelled. Item 4, no members of the public are registered to speak. Item 5, declarations of interest. Anybody got a non-pecuniary interest? Anybody got a pecuniary interest? I'll take that as no. Item 6, the first item on the agenda. Street trading policy. I invite the officers to introduce the report.
Thank you, Councillor. Good evening, everyone. The purpose of this report is to present members with the draft street trading policy and gain your approval for it to be put out to public consultation. A council can choose to adopt provisions contained within the Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1982, which relate to street trading and can require that streets within its borough are designated as consent streets, where any trading, subject to legal exemptions, can only take place once a street trading consent has been obtained from the council. Swale adopted the provisions of the Act in July 2010. And whilst there is no statutory requirement to have a policy associated with the administration of the legislation, in 2013, Swale did choose to adopt a policy to set out how we would apply the provisions of the Act, and this has been subject to various revisions since that date. The last version of the policy was adopted in March 2021, when substantial changes to the previous policy were made. And this was then subject to some further amendments, which were adopted in April of this year. The current policy is due to expire on the 31st of March 2024. So whilst the policy has come under scrutiny of this committee several times during its current 3-year life, we do need to ensure that it can be renewed in a timely fashion, hence it coming before members yet again. I think it's fair to say that we now have a policy that works well for all traders, whether they have 6-monthly or yearly consents, or whether they have one-off consents to trade at the various events held within the borough during the year. Hence, there are no proposed changes other than minor ones that are mentioned at paragraph 3.1 of the report. As always, there will be a wide-ranging consultation over an 8-week period, and we will then return to this committee in February 2024 to present a final draft, taking into account any consultation responses that we receive. The policy that will then be presented to full council in March 2024, so that it's in place for the 1st of April. I therefore welcome your comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris, for the report. Councillor Lehman.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's a very clear report. Thank you for producing something that's so concise and clear. Sorry for using the word clear twice in the same sentence. Just one minor thing in the one paragraph that's been added, there's got a typo in it where it says thwart, which I guess is through. It's got a T on the end of it. But apart from that, it all looks good. The one question I had was about the nature of the consultation. You've kind of outlined who will be kind of notified of the consultation, but I'm just curious to know what, whether that's like an online questionnaire or whether it's just a kind of a request for written submissions, because the next item that we're going to look at, I see that there were only 2 responses, so I don't know if there's a way to, encourage engagement. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the whole question of consultation is one that members over the course of years are always concerned about, and how we do engage with our public. I think the problem that we have with what we do, it's quite a dry subject, and unless you're actually somebody that's actively involved in it, it's not something that you particularly want to comment on. Well, when we did revise the policy back in 2021, and we did have quite a lot of changes then, we did get a lot of comments back. And what we do, as you'll see when it comes back to you, we do a grid. So we basically say, this is who spoke about it, this is what they were concerned about. And then we say, yeah, we agree, we'll change the policy in accordance with what you've said, or we give a justification as to why we wouldn't do that. But that's not actually what you're asking for. You're asking as to how we're going to engage with our public. Generally speaking, I have to say, we have sort of like a statutory requirement to have a newspaper advert, and then we put it on our website and we put the draft policy on, and we generally just ask for comments to be made. And we tend to ask comms if they can also do something through social media, and we invite comments back, which can be done either in writing, email, and that is really it. If you've got any right idea as to how we could do something differently, then we would. I would say to you that there are other policies, like next year we will be doing a mid-term revision of our taxi policy, and when we get to that one, we will actively engage with the trade, and we will have various sessions where we will have one-to-one or face-to-face with them, and we will come to an accord as to we're all in agreement as to whatever we present to you. With street trading and where we are now, quite frankly, I don't really feel that that's the need. Councillor Richard Palmer, you know, you've lived through this, and for you, I'm sorry, because it must feel as if we're going through the loop. Councillor Winkless, Councillor Jackson, you know, pre-election councillors, we've thrashed this out so many times. We had some issues last year around the Hop Festival and how we did with event traders, so we've sorted that out. So I'm actually not anticipating that this is going to aggravate anybody. So you may find that we come back and we have very little in terms of a response, but there will be a good reason for it. Does that explain it? Thank you.
I thank you for that, Chris. Anybody else wish to ask any questions? In that case, then I will put this item to the vote. By hands, please. All those in. Sorry, I should have asked for a proposer, sorry. And a seconder. Seconder, yeah. Councillor Lehman and Councillor Mundy seconded. Okay then. So now I will put this to the all those in favour by hands, please. That is unanimous. Thank you. Second item for decision by the Licensing Committee is item 7. So if we can offer a second, please.
Right, thank you. So this is a report about pavement licensing policy. So at a meeting of this committee on the 15th of February, members were presented with the draft pavement licence policy for approval for it to be put out to public consultation. And the purpose of this report is to feed back to members on the outcome of the consultation and to request formal adoption of the policy so that it will be valid for a 3-year period. So pavement licences were granted under the Business and Planning Act 2020, and they were introduced in response to the coronavirus pandemic and are a temporary provision to allow for the placing of tables and chairs on the highway for businesses that sell food and drink. They're issued by local authorities and they provide for a faster, easier and less expensive application process than tables and chairs licences that are issued by KCC. Although a business can still choose to license with the KCC rather than ourselves if they wish. The temporary provisions was originally intended to expire on the 30th of September 2021, but they have been extended year on year and licences have now been granted to expire on the 30th of September 2024. And for your information, where we thought that this may be something that would be a very onerous task on the licensing team, in fact, we've got 18 licences across the borough. So whilst a policy for pavement licences is not a statutory requirement, members felt that they wanted one, and it is a good way of ensuring that businesses know what is expected of them, and members of the public also know what the criteria for licensing is. The policy itself, I think, you'll find is straightforward and details the application process, what criteria the council will take into account when deciding the outcome of an application, and what conditions are imposed on a granted licence. As has already been said, you will note that we've only had 2 responses to the consultation, which are shown at Appendix 2. And the comments were received from the police, who suggested that they should be part of the consultation process, and from Borden Parish Council, who suggested that Parish Council should also be part of the consultation process. Currently, the only statutory consultee is KCC Highways, although we have always been consulting with environmental health colleagues and ward councillors. Members of the public are informed of the application by way of a statutory notice that must be posted at the premises applying for pavement licence, and we also advertise the consultation by the council's website. Now, when we look at those 2 comments that we've had, as a pavement licence can be refused or revoked on the grounds of antisocial behaviour, it is felt that consulting with the police would be appropriate. However, there is some question as to whether, given the short timescales involved in this licence application, which is only 7 days for the consultation and a further 7 days in which it's for us to determine the application, is there a sufficient reason at this moment in time to consult with parish councils, especially as the whole point of the current scheme is to be light touch, but this is for members, for you to determine if you approve the policy. I think you would also like to note that when the Levelling Up and Regeneration Bill receives royal assent, it will remove the function of tables and chairs licences from KCC and give it entirely to local authorities to administer. This is likely then to involve longer consultation periods, the ability to grant a licence for a period of 2 years with a larger fee than the current maximum of £100. And it will also give local authorities enforcement powers that at the moment we lack. This does mean that if you adopt the proposed pavement licence policy now, it will be subject to revision to include the new regulations when we would have to come back to you with further information.
Thank you, Chris, for that report. I now open this up to members to ask any questions. Councillor Mundy.
I didn't quite catch what you said. So will the police be included as a consultee in the policy?
We would like that, councillor. We need you to actually agree that you think that that's a good idea.
Well, on that note, I think it's a very good idea, because in terms of crime in the local area, the police can have a far greater understanding of that than we will, probably a greater understanding than ward councillors will, because they're going to have months and months and months of data and reports that ward councillors wouldn't be aware of, particularly as things turn into the evening. Having people out on the street could cause problems. I'm not saying that it necessarily would, and I'm sure that most premises would comply with it. And a lot of the time, actually, if a fight kicks off, it's not necessarily down to the premise, but the police would know if it was an appropriate, if it was an appropriate establishment to have that licence. So yeah, I'd like to propose that we include that in the report.
Second that, Chair.
Councillor Palmer.
I'll second that, Chair. And I would also, if I can, just add that parish councils, I can understand the need for them to be aware, but I think if the ward councillor is contacted at a short notice, I would then phone parish council and speak to them in the ward and make them aware and see if they had any comment and feed that back. Thank you. So I would concur not to include parish councils, but to include police. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So that's been noted. Thank you very much. Anybody else wish to? Councillor Lehman.
Further to Councillor Palmer's comments just then around consulting with parish councils, I agree that it seems overly onerous to include them as kind of statutory consultees, but could it be that they are at least notified of an application and then can feed back through their ward councillor if they have any specific concerns? Or
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. We do put it on the website, so they can keep their own watching brief if they want to. But if you would prefer that we didn't at least notify them, then we will. My only concern if we did that would be that they would then feel that they could make a comment, and if we didn't take it into account, it might sort of muddy the water slightly.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you.
Forgot what my other question was now. Yeah, I noticed at the back of the draft policy, you've included the proposals from the long-awaited Levelling Up and Regeneration Bill. I guess they're just there for completeness of information, rather than, if that bill goes through, that wouldn't have any material impact on the policy that's in front of us now. That would need to come back to the licensing committee.
Absolutely, councillor. It was just to give you the full flavour of where we are, where we may be, and with the things that we would probably have to include in a revised policy. I think the one thing that as local authorities, we are looking forward to is the fact that we have no enforcement powers. I would say that this particular piece of legislation we were first notified on the 27th of June 2020, and the proposed date of adoption was the 6th of July. And we thought that, you know, we were really literally busily drafting up application forms, how we were going to do the thing. Luckily, it got held up in the House of Lords called Blougham, and it finally got adopted on the 6th of August. But to actually introduce a whole new piece of legislation, it was quite interesting. But because of that, the government hadn't really thought it through. So whereas we've got powers around people who've got licenses, and we can amend their conditions, we can revoke if we really need to, which is where, of course, as Councillor Nundy said, the whole point about having information from the police would be useful, although they would tell us anyway. I would say the 18 premises that we've had have not caused any issues over this. We've not had, you know, any problems at all. But what we will get, we hope, is enforcement powers against unlicensed premises, because at the moment, all we can do is report that to KCC for them to use their powers under the Highways Act, and they will have one officer for the whole of Kent. And so, unfortunately, what we get is he will deal with the more high level stuff. But if you've got somebody that isn't really of interest to them, but we don't like it because there's one particular person on the island that we've been pursuing for about 2 years and writing all sorts of letters, and he goes wandering off to the press, quite frankly, to say the council are being naughty, and they want, you know, they keep telling me to remove my 2 tables and my 4 chairs, and yet, you know, but he's doing it illegally and we can't do anything about it. So we are hoping that when this legislation comes in, we'll have some more interesting stuff. We might even get to a stage where we have to bring something to a licensing subcommittee. You know, so we wait and see, but that's why that was included.
Thank you, Chris, for that. Any other members wish to speak? In that case, there are 2 recommendations. Do I have a proposal to agree recommendations 1 and 2? Councillor Palmer, and a seconder, Councillor Nundy. I will now then put this to the list of. Right, the proposal is to adopt the policy with the inclusion of the police. Okay, is that, you're happy with that, Councillor Nundy? Okay, thank you. So I'll just go through this again then. So I'm looking for there are 2 recommendations. To have a proposal to agree recommendations 1 and 2. So okay, fair enough. Councillor Nundy, Councillor Palmer. Right, all those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you. In that case then, the meeting has come to an end, and I thank all members, and I close the meeting. Thank you.
Do it more often, Tony. You've gone through that like a rocket.